Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to episode 6 of Kipper the Dog Home Media Reviews. Imagine that. We're on episode 6, and we're almost halfway done with this little mini-series here. And imagine that, the episode is on Imagine That. Did you guys catch the references? I'm sure you did. Enough referencing. Let's move right along into the history section of Imagine That. Well, can you imagine that? We're in the history section for Imagine That. I promise I'm not going to do that for the rest of the episode. I thought it would be funny. Imagine That hit VHS on January 15th, 2002. Now, I may have already told this story in a previous episode, but in case you've forgotten, I owned Imagine That on VHS as a kid. Not for very long, though. Imagine That was always one that I enjoyed, but I never consistently watched all that often. I maybe watched it 3 or 4 times when I was younger. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. And by the Fire Nation, I mean my VCR. I put my Imagine That tape in, I watched it. Like a good steward, I went back to rewind it, so I wouldn't have to do it later on if I wanted to watch it again. My VCR, for some odd reason, decided it was hungry and ate my tape. And it was a whole ordeal, man. That thing was completely ruined. I mean, it pulled all of its tape out of its reels. My dad had to come downstairs and take the VCR apart just to get the tape out. It was an ordeal, and it was not very good. No, it was sad at first, but then I just kind of forgot about it. I mean, I still had the case for it, and I think I still had the actual physical, plastic case that the tape came out of, but the tape wasn't inside of it. I don't know why my mom and dad let me keep it, just to remind me of the VHS tape that I lost that I would never see again. And I guess I never asked for a replacement because I never got a second Imagine That copy. Probably because it wasn't my favorite when I was a kid. And I never owned any Kipper on DVD, except for one release, which we'll talk about later on in this show. That's changed, however, because now I have Imagine That on DVD. Speaking of that, Imagine That hit DVD on March 23rd, 2004. Imagine That on DVD turned 20 years old this year. That's crazy. I'm just scrolling through the gallery here on the wiki, and it turns out there is a reprint of the VHS tape. Imagine That had a white tape as well as a black tape. I believe mine was the black variant. I never owned any white tapes of Kipper when I was a kid. They were all black for me. I think the only colored tapes I ever owned were Thomas and Friends blue tapes, to promote Magic Railroad around that time. Whenever a tape had a blue color scheme or a green one. Oh, I had a couple VeggieTales ones, so I had some lime green tapes too. I always thought that those were special. The standard color of a tape is black, but then if it's white, blue, green, red, any other color, it means it was special. Do you guys ever feel that way? Let me know down in the comments. Other than that, I'm not seeing any other variants here, which means that this is the end for the history section of Imagine That. Let's move right along to the close-up. Alrighty, everyone, here's your close-up look at Imagine That. This is the 2004 DVD release. Got DVD logo up there at the top, Kipper logo. Here's a little butterfly in there. Isn't that nice? Kipper on the front. He's jumping to grab a balloon. He's not being carried by the balloon. I think this foot's on the ground. I'm deciphering the hidden meaning behind this cover art here. 60 minutes of fun, and then Imagine That down there at the bottom. A refreshing pace for today's busy kids. I really like the bright yellow color scheme on this. It might be my favorite color that they've used so far for a Kipper release. It's very striking. It catches your attention. Same portrait of Kipper on the spine. Kipper there, imagine that. Hit logo, DVD logo, and product number. The back features the Kipper logo and the Imagine That title again. Tiny barcode up there. A blurb about the release. Your 7 episodes are listed down here at the bottom. I think screenshots from the episodes, but just the white backgrounds have been taken away from them. I don't think this is just like stock clip art there. And we got some legalese down there at the bottom. Inside, your disc is blue now, which is in direct contrast to the yellow here, which I guess that makes sense. You know, blue and teal. Teal and orange are opposites on the color wheel, so blue and yellow, I guess, would be. Oh, here's something that I forgot to mention over the last few weeks since we've been covering Kipper on DVD exclusively now. I really like the white cases. Most DVDs come in black cases, but the white ones just make these colors on the poster art stand out that much more, especially with this yellow one. Anyway, that wraps up your close-up. Let's move right along to the menu tour. Alrighty, everyone, here's your menu tour for Imagine That. I was a bit skeptical about this one having a menu because I didn't see any bonus content on the back of it, like with Pools, Parks, and Picnics a few weeks ago. But to my surprise, it does indeed have a menu. We have play all episodes, episode selection, language selection, and trailers. Now I'm curious, if I click this trailers tab, is it just going to play trailers from the beginning of this release? Let's find out. Oh, no, it doesn't. So we actually have some options here. We can watch a trailer for Cuddly Critters, Happy, Mad, Silly, Sad from Barney, or Lights, Camera, Action from Angelina Ballerina. And look, there's some stock clip art taken from Tiger Tales. Episode selection is very similar to Tiger Tales. You've got all your episodes listed here. And just like with Tiger Tales, you can play all the episodes from this menu as well. And finally, your language menu is just English and Spanish, but again, the fact that this has language options at all is pretty impressive. And there's Pig and Arnold there. A short menu tour, but at least this one has a menu. And look, there are balloons that pop up there. Isn't that fun? That wraps up your menu tour. Let's go ahead and head on back and answer the 5 main questions as always. Alright, so we're back from the close-up. Now it's time to answer the 5 main questions as always. Number 1, where can you pick this product up? Well, just like the last 5 weeks, Imagine That's not really available in stores anymore. Hasn't been for quite some time. I haven't seen any copies of it out in the wild at places like flea markets or stuff like that, so I would say online retailers. Number 2, is this product still being printed nowadays? Nope. Number 3, should you pick this product up? Unlike last week, I actually watched my physical copy of Imagine That. I wasn't lazy and watched my ripped copy that was on my Plex server. No, I actually got up, got my DVD out of my cabinet, threw it into my PS4, watched Kipper Imagine That on a disc. Is there much difference between that and my Plex stream? Probably not. It's only a DVD, so the quality isn't going to be too much different, but I will say it felt kind of nice watching it on a disc. There were no trailers at the start of this release, so we begin with Kipper's Circus. Hey, that stick and rope thing from the cover of Tiger Tales, that finally makes sense now. It's on Imagine That. I've definitely spun too fast like that on a swing before and not been able to balance properly. I understand Kipper and Tiger's frustrations there. Unfortunately, my balance is bad regardless of the spins or not. I've talked about how bad my equilibrium is. I can trip over my own 2 feet, basically. I can't do a handstand for crap. I'm exactly like Tiger. I just fall and say, ow! The way Tiger says, trapeze, made me laugh for some odd reason. I just thought that was really funny. Ta-da! Kipper, the world-famous trapeze artist. The music in this episode is really good. In fact, I'll preview my thoughts for everything else, but the music here is top-notch. I haven't complimented the music for this show since I think The Visitor. So, good job, Kipper. Your music was really good here in every single one of these stories. I've never attempted to walk a tightrope. I know exactly how that would go. I would fall flat on my face. Great moves on those bikes, though, and a great start to Imagine That. We move on to pirates. We start off this episode with Kipper and Tiger making paper airplanes and paper boats. And that poses the question, which is better, a paper boat or a paper airplane? I can't make either one, so I won't be doing that science experiment. It's a submarine. Oh dear. Do you think it's dangerous? The comedy in this episode is top-notch. The one-upsmanship between Tiger and Kipper, Tiger falling in the river off-screen, the knots gag, absolutely perfect. After Kipper and Tiger tie up some barrels and float on over to Pig's new hideout, without knowing that it's Pig's new hideout, they get completely caught off guard by Pig going, "Ooh, ooh," from inside of that hollow tree. Good on you, Pig. That prank was absolutely genius. His ghost voice was kind of creepy, and the gag about the fishing rod at the end made me crack up. "Oh no, we're marooned. Don't be silly, Tiger." And he just walks out in the middle of the water and is like, "Look, it's not that deep." Again, top-notch comedy here. Loved this episode. The Magic Act. Another running gag throughout this show. Kipper still hasn't cleaned his closet. Much like myself. I remember getting interested in painting because of this episode. I was fascinated with the way that Kipper painted his magic hat. I was a bit artsy when I was in my youth. I took a lot of art classes when I was in middle school and maybe one or two when I was in high school. I have a bunch of old artwork that I drew when I was really young. I might do a video on it at some point. You know, that'd be kind of fun showing you guys my old artwork back when I actually knew how to draw and I wanted to be an artist at one point. Come on, Arnold. Give Kipper the card back so he can do his trick. You don't want to look in there, Arnold. Arnold out here causing chaos as usual, totally exposing Kipper for the fraud that he is. And when that little hides from everyone when Kipper makes him disappear in the box, I could not get enough of that. Arnold is such a mood in this episode. Like I said a few weeks ago, he could take down the government if he really wanted to. The Magic Lamp. The start of this episode sets the tone for it immediately. No music, just an owl and some rustling leaves. You instantly feel kind of weird, kind of uneasy with the start of this episode. It might get a little dark. Not really, though. It is Kipper, but it does make you uneasy at the beginning of it, which is the purpose. Kipper finds an old lamp in that pile, which looks more like a camera, to be honest with you. Tiger's going to paint his walls pink. Bit of an odd color choice, but who am I to judge? Wallpaper is the absolute worst, though. I feel Tiger's pain here. That stuff is awful. It, medically bonds to the wall. I've had to yank it off of walls before in some of my relatives' houses. It sucks. Now we're at the point where I tell you why I didn't watch Imagine That much as a kid. It's because of the staircase scene, where they're both just climbing up and up and up and up, and just the echoes, for some odd reason, it made me uneasy. I didn't enjoy that feeling from this episode. And when they get all the way up to the top, because Kipper says, "I wish the staircase would end." "Oh, look, Tiger, it has." "Ah!" And they're in this giant void just at the top of the staircase, and the echo and everything. As a kid, that freaked me out. Not as much as something like a Han Solo in Carbonite or Stepney Gets Lost from Thomas and Friends, but that was kind of freaky to me as a kid. You can instantly feel that almost dreadful tonal shift there, what the heck are we going to do? We're at the top of this staircase, and there's nowhere to go. We're in this weird world that we don't understand, and then Kipper wishes that Tiger would stop talking, and Tiger's mouth gets sewed shut. That's freaky. That's some Saw stuff right there. He's just... dude, come on. No way, man. Not for me. I do love how after they realize that the lamp is controlling everything, and after Kipper wishes Tiger's mouth to be unsewed, Kipper just wishes for them to go on a giant roller coaster. He's like not concerned at all about getting back home. He's just like, I wish we could go on the biggest, loudest, fastest roller coaster ever. And so they do. And it's a wonderful piece of music, animation. Everything about this roller coaster scene is perfection. But then they go to space. I'm not kidding. The roller coaster goes into space and they stop on some alien planet. Is it the moon? I don't know. It has a giant dragon living in a crater, so I assume it's not the moon. How in the world does this work? I mean, I understand that the lamp is magic, but is this their reality? Is this a parallel universe that they've traveled to? Does this planet exist in their universe? Can they travel to it without the lamp? It poses so many questions, and I know I shouldn't be asking them because there's no point in asking them because they're never going to be answered. There's no point in trying to figure it out. This is a kid's show, but it's just, I wonder these things. And the background work here for this alien planet looks really cool, and that dragon was awesome looking, but then everything just kind of wraps up. I think it's Tiger wishes that none of this had ever happened, and then they crash, they fall through the door, and boom, they're back in Tiger's house, the wallpaper is gone, and then they just play tic-tac-toe. Kind of an anticlimactic ending there, it just kind of stops. But, okay. An insane episode, though, and a big risk for this show because they actually went for something that was a little spooky. Definitely freaked me out as a kid, and that was one of the reasons why I didn't watch this as much as all of the other ones. It didn't make me feel as nice and happy. It made me feel something else, other than just whimsy. That being said, though, I love this episode now as an adult. It's a great one, and just, wow, this one goes up there with, like, the Rainbow Puddle as being one of the craziest ones. The costume party. My costume is a surprise, but please don't come as a pirate. Hey guys, just come here for a second. Okay, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I think I figured out what Tiger's costume is. I think it's a pirate. I could be wrong, but I have some strong evidence to back it up. And I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that Tiger is going to be a pirate. The running gag with the closet comes back, I always laugh at that. Kipper dressing up as an Indian chief, though. That wasn't on my 2024 bingo card, but here we are. And Kipper in drag? When he's in the fairy outfit? Okay, show was ahead of its time. Go ahead. I can see, though, if, like, a journalist that is really bored one day and just wants notoriety, he can both simultaneously cancel and praise Kipper for doing two different things. Is like, we cancel Kipper because he was an Indian chief, and that's cultural appropriation. We can't do that. But also, Kipper was in drag, showing that he is actually trans, and he is actually a she, so therefore, Kipper was progressive. So does that mean that the cancellation and the praise, like, cancel each other out, and the show just stays the same? Like, I don't know how all of this progressive stuff works. And honestly, I don't think a lot of other people know either. They just say stuff to get a reaction out of people. Is it my costume nice? Yes, Pig, it really suits you. Damn, Kipper. Call and pick a clown now? Guys, I was right, though. Tiger is a pirate. Conspiracy theory proven correct. But then when Jake shows up as the fairy, I lost it. I thought that was hilarious. And the fact that he wins, that made me happy. I thought that was funny. Poor Pig, though. That guy really just can't catch a break. He's got these giant floppy shoes on, and he's got Arnold as a duck. And Arnold wants to wear the duck's bill as a hat. It doesn't work out for him in this episode. Arnold's balloon trip. Other than the magic lamp, which I kind of almost repressed, this is the episode that I remembered the most from this release. Partially because it's the one that's represented on the front cover. Kipper reaching for that balloon. The main cast minus Jake has just left a theme park, and Arnold floats away with his giant balloon. Classic Arnold move. He is completely unbothered by this, evidenced by his thumb still being in his mouth as he is floating away, and as Kipper, Pig, and Tiger are about to piss themselves because they just lost a child. And Arnold's just like, I am completely unbothered by this. This is fine. Arnold could witness a nuclear holocaust and would not bat an eye at it. He would just look at it and be like, interesting. Honestly, he'd probably be the one to cause it. This episode follows the logic of Up, that Pixar movie that everybody loves because of the first 10 minutes, but then after that it's just kind of okay. Meaning that balloons are able to carry giant objects, and I couldn't have enjoyed it more because of that. It's actually a pretty good idea using balloons to float the entire bench up into the sky to search for Arnold. How do they control that, though? How do they steer? Wouldn't it just go up and up and up, and when it hits the stratosphere, all the balloons would pop? Kind of seems like flawed logic there. How does Arnold steer? Arnold lands on a mountain that is apparently made of, like, candy or soda or something. I'm not quite sure. He slides down in this really awesome slide that I wished I could have gone on as a kid. He lands in, like, this field that has bubbles, and I think he eats, like, gum or something, but then he also gets an ice cream cone where the cone is made of peppermint, and then he walks past this giant river that I assume is like a Coca-Cola type of soda. I assume it's just all made of junk food. It's like a kid's dream, basically. And again, he's just completely unbothered, just walking along, just, look at this strange substance. I'm gonna eat it. The others are not having the best time, though. They get ambushed by a giant flock of birds, but the birds weren't trying to take them out, so I struggle with calling it an ambush. The comedy with them is really good, and just seeing Arnold's situation being so great and theirs just so perilous, it was a great dichotomy there. Seeing them try to pop balloons was funny too. One more, I think. Are you sure? Oh, yes. Arnold's dopey smile after he leaves the mountain cracks me up every time. The other three mounted a rescue mission, and he's just completely fine. He just waves. It's like, hey guys, look, I'm on a mountaintop. And he just floats away on the balloon, and Kipper grabs him, and then boom, everyone's okay at the end. This one might be my favorite. It's just so funny. This one or Pirates is probably my favorite on this release. And we end off with The Fair, the episode that introduced me to the Ferris wheel. I'd never seen one or heard of it prior to seeing this episode, and I always wanted to ride on one. The maze portion was very realistic, since nobody I've ever met can solve a maze quickly. And seeing Pig run around there with the fun and whimsical music playing as he just keeps going, oh! Like I said, nothing ever works out for Pig, and it's so funny. The mirrors were always a highlight of any fair, and there are some creative uses of animation for those funny mirrors. Going back to the maze, though, Pig's a total badass because he just says, screw it, and just opens up the maze and walks out. Honestly, I've gotten frustrated in corn mazes too. I've wanted to do that, Pig. You can't do that with corn, though, but I've wanted to. I remember, though, when I was Arnold's age, and wanting that one stuffed animal that just caught my eye and I just could not stop thinking about. I would either have to win it in like a competition or something, or my parents would buy it for me. Honestly, this being a fair, Arnold probably had to win it by like shooting a bunch of targets, and he probably got all three of them at once. I'm sure a ton of my stuffed animals that are in my room right now and in the basement have a very similar story to that with how I acquired them. Crazy that this release goes into space, climbs a endless staircase, and flies around on the top of a mountain, and it ends with just Kipper, Arnold, and Pig at a fair. So what do I think of Imagine That as a whole? It's definitely the craziest release of Kipper that we've seen so far, and it features some really standout stories. It doesn't go too far with its insanity, but it does keep the audience wondering what crazy thing it might try next. I imagine you'll get a real kick out of this whenever you all watch it, because it is definitely recommended. Also, second week in a row, we have a menu for the menu tour. Yay! there's no bonus content that's advertised on the back of the DVD, but there is trailers on here. That's kind of bonus content, right? I mean, there's no hit extras or anything, but hey, trailers. Number 4, where should you pick this product up? Same answers as number 1. And number 5, what price should you pay? The VHS tape, God rest its soul, you should probably pay about, like, I don't know, $5-10 for that. It's not really all that expensive. And the DVD, just like any other one, I'd say about $10 to $15 for that. These releases here in the middle, they fetch about $10 to $15 on the secondary market. Well, folks, that wraps up your home media review for Imagine That. I never imagined that I would like this release as much as I did. If you asked me when I was like 5 and I watched this for the first time and got freaked out by the magic lamp, I'd have told you that this was the worst thing ever and I never want to see it again. But now, as an adult, with more perspective on life and realizing that there are many things that are far more scary than an endless staircase, like death and taxes, I like this one a lot more now. I'm sure the burning question that's on everyone's mind now is, what are we covering next week? Well, I have just one thing to say to all of you people. Don't rock the jukebox. I want to hear some Jones, 'cause my heart ain't ready for the cuddly critters. I don't feel like rocking since the video's over. So don't rock the jukebox. Play me a Kipper episode. Next week is Cuddly Critters, the episode that's based all around animals, and one that I really enjoyed from when I was a kid. We'll talk more about that next week. Thank you all so very much for watching. I will see you all then. Good night, everybody. I know none of you guys can see this right now, but it is so hot in this closet right now. I really need to replace this bulb with like an LED or something, but the shirt's coming off. I mean, it's got to come off. It just, whew.